Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, committed to conservation and careful management of the state's forests to make them more resilient and better habitats for wildlife. ChooseWood.com.
This is St. Louis on the Air from St. Louis Public Radio. I'm Elaine Cha. It's said that art imitates life. In the case of the Immigrant Song concert series, we have an example of art used to counter threats to people who live life in many different ways. Formed in response to the increase in race, culture, and religion-based domestic hate crimes since 2016, Immigrant Song concerts celebrate ethnic and cultural diversity by featuring local artists of various backgrounds. That includes Anu French, a St. Louis artist, singer, and holistic pediatrician who's performed at Immigrant Song concerts since 2018. She moved to the U.S. nearly 30 years ago from India.
I would say that I've experienced a fair share of racism and ignorance and prejudice because I look different and sound different and smell different and eat different and pray different. But I would also say that most of what I've experienced has been inclusive and tolerant and patient and kind. And so when we get up there and sing together as a group of people from different backgrounds, different immigrant ancestors' experiences, it just kind of reinforces that's the America that I want to live in and choose to live in, where we all come together and that we continue to work to amplify voices of people who don't have voices, because there was a long time where I didn't feel like I had a voice, and now I feel like I do. So I feel like I need to speak up for those who don't. And I want to also make sure that my daughters really understand that moving forward in a world that they're going to be navigating as Indian Americans. So it's just wonderful that we can do that through music, because music is so uniting and music is so healing.
On May 12th, Anu and other St. Louis artists will gather for Immigrant Song's Mother's Day concert. Anu's mother is visiting from India, and she will be in the audience that day. Anu says it's a special moment as her mother taught her the Vedic mantras that she performs in her songs.
She was my first music teacher, and so it's just really a full circle moment. And, she still teaches Vedic mantra. She's in her 70s now, and she continues to teach so many thousands of people Vedic mantra. And so that legacy from her to me, now I'm teaching mantra. And so it's wonderful for her to be there and to hear the music that I've created, which is so influenced by the music that she has created. She's a musician in her own right, too. The first song I'm performing is called O Mother Gayatri, and I wrote this song in honor of the divine feminine, the mother goddess energy that is within all of us and all around us. And it honors the Gayatri mantra, which is the Hindu Vedic mantra. It's a very powerful mantra that talks about taking us from darkness to light. But it also honors all the strong women on my mother's side, on the matriarchal side of my family. And so that's in honor of Mother's Day, and also tying into the theme of honoring our mothers and foremothers and ancestors of this show.
O Mother Gayatri,
That was Anu French, who will perform O Mother Gayatri and a cover of Hands by Jewel at Immigrant Song's Mother's Day concert on May 12th at the Focal Point in Maplewood. Here with me now to talk about Immigrant Song is its founder, Katie McGrath. Katie, welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for inviting us in.
And also with us is Immigrant Song's music director, Larry Pry. Hello, Larry.
Hi, it's good to be here.
And we have performer Chuck Flowers. Chuck, welcome to St. Louis on the Air.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
So let's get some more of the Immigrant Song basics. The organization itself, Katie, it started in one place and migrated here to St. Louis.
That's right.
How did that happen?
Well, I'm from St. Louis. I was raised here and lived here for most of my life. I moved to New York City in 2016 after I retired from my advertising job because I wanted to study music. And I did so. And I did some performing and so forth. And I also got involved more in politics there. It's hard not to, you know. But January 28th, I believe, is when the Muslim ban was announced by the previous president. And I was shocked and not surprised, but it still was shocking and horrifying. And the very next day, there was a protest at JFK Airport, the international airport in New York. And there were maybe 100 people, walking up one side and then the other side of the sidewalk. And it was pretty dreary and sad. And then a guy started singing a song. It was "This Land Is Your Land." And one by one, people started joining in. And what started out for me, cynical me, as an eye-rolling moment, like, oh, please, became this really beautiful, hopeful, uniting moment. And that's when I realized that we could use music as a way to express our need to unite regardless of our origins, that as Americans we had an opportunity and a responsibility to each other to be tolerant and accepting and welcoming and make the most of the fact that we are different. Most nations didn't start out with that tremendous advantage that I see. But music is a way to pierce the walls that keep us separated.
Right.
And, you know, in every culture, in every language, music is used as a way to gather people together and disarm them, you know, invite them to, you know, participate together. So that's what we do.
So then you moved back to St. Louis. I mean, what was it that made you feel that STL would appreciate Immigrant Song and what you were trying to do with it?
The first few concerts we did in New York City, and they were hugely just joyfully received. I wasn't sure how it was going to be done here. So I decided to call the most committed and colorful people I knew, including Larry and Chuck and Anu and some other people who I knew would do it no matter what, right? And so we put on a show, and it was magical. It was magical. People were strangers were hugging each other and tears coming to eyes, and some of the songs were really fun and upbeat, and some were contemplative, like Anu's chanting. Chuck, as you probably know, is one of the top singers in St. Louis, so whenever he has a microphone in his hand, people get excited. And so it was a real mix of things, but overall it was a gathering together and people feeling like they were in a big hug.
So, Chuck, what was your first impression of that show?
Exciting to be with a lot of different people who sing different songs. It's a different culture. I just love meeting the people that I did when I got to the first rehearsal that we had, and I was just totally interested from day one.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I want to underscore something, you know, that you've been involved with Immigrant Song since its inception in New York City, and now here in St. Louis. On May 12th, you'll be singing several songs, and one of them is one that you performed at an Immigrant Song concert in 2021, which is your rendition of Bill Withers' Grandma's Hands, which featured some storytelling about your relationship with your own grandmother.
I remember a lot of little things as a child. Coming home from school as a kid, walking down the street, and as I get close to the house, she had the door open with the screen door open. Who remembers the screen door? that you better not slam. But I could hear her as I came around the corner, and I said, "Oh, she's playing today." She played the piano. Grandma's hands used to hand me a piece of candy. Grandma's hands used to ache sometimes and swell. Grandma's hands used to tell me, baby, Grandma understands that you really love that man. Put yourself in Jesus' hands, but I don't have Grandma anymore. When I get to heaven, I'll look for Grandma's hand.
So, Chuck, you said that you felt some embrace. What is it that has made Immigrant Song so uniquely deserving of your time and of your many talents?
Mainly because of what Katie came to me with this. And it was different, and it was just, I just felt I wanted to be involved. And that Katie being so sweet, just her uniqueness and her love and her warm spirit just made me want to be a part of it, and very enlightening for me and very fulfilling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Larry, you too, you bring much to Immigrant Song that encompasses artistic talents like musical theater work, which you're very active with, as well as personal perspective and lived experience. How does that all come together in what you do for this organization? And I mean, is there perhaps an example that you can share that illustrates how all of those sort of intersect?
Sure. Musical theater has been part of my life since I was 15 years old. I'm not going to say how old I am now, but it's a long time. And what we do in musical theater, we're storytellers, and we make a change with our stories. And when Katie brought this idea to me, my first thought was, oh, is timing right? A little skeptical, but let's give it a shot. And I met the gang, and it's like, boy, what stories are we telling? And I used my musical theater music direction style to help shape the show and help with the arrangements with the band, and because the musicians are solid players. But that was the first time we'd ever played together as a group. And so we had to figure all that out. And then, you know, I look back on musical theater's history, which really was started by Jewish immigrants. And that is the history of musical theater. And we're today still fighting, you know, all nationalities, races, religions. We're still not equal here in this country. And then with my LGBTQ background, still today, we fight for equality. And so I'm proud to represent my group, my and tell my story, but also help tell other people's stories, because music is the one thing that everybody knows and feels and can be affected by. So if I can help that, it makes me happy.
So how is it that people who attend these concerts, there have been 3 of them, how do they describe what an Immigrant Song concert is like? Larry?
I think it's going to depend on who you ask. If I'm an Indian immigrant, it's going to affect me differently. If I'm a gay person, I'm going to see myself represented and also remember the story my grandfather told me about when he came over from Germany. If I'm a female, it's going to be different than if I'm male. That's what makes it that's really what makes this concert interesting, because everyone gets something different from it.
Right.
There's a communal hug, as Katie described it, that happens, but we're not quite sure why we're hugging, but we know we have to.
Right.
And then when we go home, then we ruminate on it. And it's like, okay, this just happened. Why do I feel different?
Right.
And then the next concert happens.
And then from the musician's perspective, Chuck, like, what do you take away from it that maybe you didn't have going in?
A sense of peace. Another thing that gets me with it is what Larry was talking about as far as musical theater. And I come from musical theater, being at the Black Repertory Theater Company and other things. So that connection and the theater piece of it and the story piece of it and the history piece of it means a lot to me about, my background, where my grandparents came from. So just a warm feeling, just a sense of peace and connection and unity.
We're going to take a very quick break here, but we will be back shortly to continue this conversation.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association. Missouri produces wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details on the variety of products made in the state are at choosewood.com.
Let's return to our conversation about the Immigrant Song concert series, which is a celebration of ethnic and cultural differences. It features local artists of various backgrounds, and on May 12th, St. Louis artists will gather for their latest performance, Mother's Day, the Gratitude Concert at the Focal Point in Maplewood. We're speaking with Katie McGrath, Immigrant Song founder, Larry Pry, the concert series music director, and singer and performer Chuck Flowers. Now, before the break, we were talking about what the experience of these concerts are. Now, there is something that I wanted to make sure that we touched upon, and that is the focus of Immigrant Song. And it's not merely family, but it's also ancestors. Why was that something important to include, Katie?
Well, most of us here in the United States have origins from someplace else. Whether we arrived in chains via slave ships, like Chet Y, one of our singers, or whether we came via chain migration, like my grandmother did. Her brother was a priest here in Belleville, and she came over from Ireland because there was nothing for her there. There was no food, no job, nothing. So she was a lucky one who was able to come, and she got a job as a maid in St. Louis. And so each of us comes, nobody got here on a winning streak, let's say. We were all fleeing something, either poverty or religious persecution, or we were dragged here and put into slavery. So there were very few bands meeting the ticker tape parades and so forth to welcome the immigrants. Once they arrived, things weren't easy either, but over the generations, year after year, we assimilate, and we can choose either to leave the old ways behind us, or the way Anu does, celebrate it with her daughters and make sure it's passed along.
And with her mother as well.
And her mother, right.
When I said ancestors, Chuck, both you and Larry, you both agreed, were nodding in agreement. Why is that, Chuck? Why is that important?
Because of the stories that my grandparents told me of my ancestors, where they came from, and they came through the Great Migration, from down south, Arkansas, Mississippi, that kind of thing. And when they moved west and they stopped in St. Louis, where other people went to Detroit and Chicago. So just their St. Louis foundation and my grandmother's strong sense of family and saving money, learn to save money, to do things, to progress, to be better, to move our family along, and that kind of thing.
Larry, ancestors for you?
Ancestors for me is my life. I'm nothing without my ancestors. I think a big problem in today's world is we don't want to embrace what happened before us. And without our ancestors, we would not have a foundation to walk on. And my life story, even though I'm the first gay person in my family that I know of, I have that foundation of love and happiness that my family and the family before them, my grandfather, my great-grandfather, as they journeyed to this country, they gave me my legs to walk on. They gave me the stories to tell. And if we stop telling ancestral stories, then we stop growing because there's nowhere to grow from.
Well, someone that is most immediate insofar as lineage goes is mother. And I understand that Mother's Day theme, it came after you had settled upon May 12th as the date. Has that ended up being fortuitous in some way that you're excited about, Katie?
Indeed. This is the first time we've had this sort of theme in Immigrant Song beyond social justice. Although the first one in New York was coincidentally on the anniversary of the signing of the Constitution. So that was about everyone's favorite constitutional song, of which, of course, there are none. But in the case of Mother's Day, if you say what song makes you think of your mother, people just get soft and melty like caramel, And so everybody is bringing their love for their mothers, not necessarily very specifically to the song. They do like Liz Murphy White, who's a terrific singer around town. She's singing two upbeat songs that aren't very specific toward her mother, but they are special to her as it relates to her, But it did add a layer of sentimentality and reflection that I think has added to the whole considerably.
Now, this will be the May 12th show, the first Immigrant Song concert that will feature readings.
Right.
And one of the speakers is someone that our audience may recognize because
That's right.
she was on the show.
That's right. Thanks to you.
Right?
Yes.
Fatima El-Kabti.
Right.
And she'll be reading an excerpt from her new book, The White Parasol.
Right.
And it's based on her great-grandfather, Said Zinedine, a prominent lawyer and poet in Jaffa, where Palestinians faced mass displacement during the 1948 Arab-Israeli War. Another will be from St. Louis-based rabbi, musician, and poet James Stone Goodman, and there will be readings from his books of poetry, Fountain, Respect for Sources, and Espaclaria is a mirror, sometimes cloudy, sometimes clear. Larry, was including readings a response to some of what you heard from concert goers in the past, or was it a way to incorporate perhaps another form of art that is very strong in St. Louis?
I think it was intentionally to help incorporate more diversity in the style and also in the culture. There aren't a lot of well-known songs that we could do to tell what these poems can tell, and to bring these beautiful people in to tell do their own work is really lucky for us.
The well-known part, is that important?
For music, you want it to be able to catch somebody's ear, but even if we like a news music, no one knows.
Right.
But you when you're lining up a concert, you don't want too much of that because otherwise you lose them.
Right.
Yeah.
We lean toward what's familiar to our ears, So we always search for a combination of uniqueness, but the comfort of familiarity,
Right.
so that folks will feel great about, sometimes sing along, and then they'll take a moment to sit back and listen to something that's brand new. Speaking of brand new, another first-time performer for the Immigrant Song shows is Walter Parks, who is, he's famous for having been Richie Haven's sideman for so many years. Richie Haven was a great singer who was in Woodstock and so forth. But Walter has made it his business to become a national scholar on the people of the Okefenokee Swamp in the South and the music thereof and so forth. So he has become very much tuned into that style of music, which are called hollers. It's the yelling put to music that the people would do to announce their arrival or to say goodbye and so forth. So his contribution to the show is going to be really amazing.
And Larry, in the work that you are doing as the director, you're arranging classics, changing them up so that it will fit the theme of the concert. Is there anything in particular that you want to tease about what people will hear on May 12th?
If you see the song list, it's not going to sound like what it normally does. Straight out.
Okay.
Our drummer, he doesn't use a drum set. He uses a drum box that he sits on. And our electric guitarist, Mike, is just an aficionado of that instrument. And I give him freedom to do his own licks. And, the shape is the same. The sound will be different because every singer brings their unique voice to it. And so we do the arrangements as uniquely as we can for that.
Katie, you founded Immigrant Song as a response to the increase in race, culture, and religion-based domestic hate crimes since 2016. For each of you, have you noticed a shift in your experiences around that in the past 8 years, Chuck?
I see it in a lot of different people that I meet now, musicians especially, because I'm always in touch with musicians and I'm always supporting and going to see them perform. So I'm seeing more musicians come together. I'm seeing a lot coming together, a lot of appreciation for each other.
Yeah.
That's what I'm seeing.
Have you seen a shift, Larry?
It depends on where I look. Nationally, we're still fighting, and we're going to keep fighting as long as politics exist, and because it's a great talking point for politicians. But locally, the one thing I really love about St. Louis is it does move, it does change, and it's a lot more welcoming now here in St. Louis. And people are coming together, especially with the new influx of immigrants that have started coming in from Ukraine or wherever. St. Louis has big arms, and they reach out, and we get to share not only who these people are, but also their culture.
Yeah.
We get their music, we get their food, we get their love, we get their problems as well.
Right.
And that helps us go beyond ourselves to reach out, and it just grows.
Katie, have you seen a change?
Overall, you hear in the news a lot about how major crimes statistics have improved or have gone down. But the FBI reports that hate crimes have gone up. And the majority, or the biggest increase has been in the LGBTQ community, and the largest continues to be against Black people. So while overall it may be calmer, perhaps it's been reported more frequently, but we're seeing numbers go in the opposite direction of what we want.
So we included a song in our introduction to this conversation, so it seems fitting to end with one question about music. What is a song that you turn to when you feel like you need a boost of hope or reassurance that things will get better? Katie?
I love that question, and it would be A Beautiful City from Godspell, the second version that was written for their revival. It's a lot more somber. I have goosebumps just talking about it. It's a stunner, and it's, to me, it's grim, but it has hope in it.
Chuck?
The song that gets me is "Wake Up Everybody" by Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, which is an old song, of course, but still resonates today. And I go to it a lot. Just a song of hope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Larry?
Ironically, I start my day every day with this song, and when I'm down, I play it. It's Walking on Sunshine by Katrina and the Waves.
Okay.
It's literally, you walk past my house at 6 a.m. and you can hear me dancing through my house
Come on now.
just because, why not?
It's good to know.
To put it on the itinerary.
There you go.
Right.
Immigrant Song founder Katie McGrath, music director Larry Pry, and singer and performer Chuck Flowers, thank you so much for talking with
you.
us today.
Thank you. It's a true
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Immigrant Song's Mother's Day concert is at 2 p.m. on Sunday at the Focal Point in Maplewood. The event is free, but reservations are recommended. More information can be found at immigrantsong.org.
This episode was produced by Emily Woodbury.
Our executive producer is Alex Hoyer.
St. Louis on the Air is a production of St. Louis Public Radio. Understanding starts here.
Do you find yourself regularly listening to episodes of St. Louis on the Air? Suggest us to a friend you think might enjoy our conversations, and leave us a review and rating on Apple Podcasts on the App Store. It's the simplest way to help people discover our show. Thank you.
St. Louis Public Radio is a member-supported service of the University of Missouri St. Louis.
Support comes from the Missouri Forest Products Association, providing more than 41,000 jobs in the production of wood pallets, railroad ties, white oak barrels, hardwood floors, and more. Details at choosewood.com.